Our special guest this week, Scott Goodyear, one of the greatest drivers in Canadian history. 2 times he was runner-up at the Indy 500, and he had one taken away. We're talking racing. Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show, coming up! Welcome to the program. We are very pleased and excited to have this week's guest. We go way back. He is a Toronto native, a Formula Atlantic champion, a go-kart champion, Rothman's Porsche Cup champion, qualified for the Indy 500 11 times, 2-time winner of the Michigan 500, 2-time winner of the Texas Longhorn 500, a 2-time Indy 500 runner-up. He was an analyst for ABC and ESPN, longest-serving analyst for the Indy 500 and the IndyCar Series, 17 years, a member of the Canadian Motorsports Hall of Fame, a member of the Ontario Sports Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program, Scott Goodyear. Scotty, good to see you. You look great, my friend.
Joe, how are you? I'm doing great, thank you. You look good. Great to see you.
Thank you. Good. You look good, too. We both look good. We've aged well, my friend. Like fine wine, I guess, you know. It's Indy 500 week, and we're going to talk motor racing, which makes a lot of sense. And, with one of the most successful, most accomplished drivers Canada has seen. Let's begin at the beginning, which is like what we like to do here, Scotty. You started in go-karts, and you had great success there. You were a 6-time Canadian champion. You were a 5-time North American champion, North American Grand National Karting champion. How did you get into racing?
My dad owned a motorcycle and snowmobile business in Toronto called Winner's Circle, and we sold and serviced go-karts at the same time. So he'd go do calls to different go-kart tracks around the province, and in the summertime, I'd go with him. And when we got there, the track owner would generally ask if I'd want to go drive the go-kart. So they'd take me down to the track and pull the cord and start it, and I'd go out there and drive around till the gas ran out of the thing. So it was a lot of fun. That was at the age of 7, and at that time, back then, you were not able to compete until the age of 9. So did that for a couple of summers, and once I was 9 years of age, my dad started taking me to go-kart racing, which was close by Stouffville, a track called Goodyear Kartways. There was a track at Georgetown at that point in time, and then we ventured south, obviously, across the border, too.
And you had tremendous success in go-kart. Scotty, did you know way back then that this is what we're going to do for a living?
You know, Joe, I'm not sure I did, because I was enjoying it, and you're there with all the other kids that are karting. When we went to the summer nationals and winter nationals, that sort of thing, a lot of Canadians would go down there. So we'd be in Barnesville, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta, Georgia, every February, March. And a lot of Canadians were down there. So, I mean, for me, that was my sport. That was my hockey, if you will, or, my love or golf or whatever, I guess. And I didn't really know that I was going to end up motor racing. I was just enjoying the moment as a young kid, I guess, really.
When did you know? When did you say to yourself, Scott Goodyear, you're going to be a race car driver?
Well, I knew when I wanted to. I'm not sure that I knew at that point I would become one. There again, very local. Mossport, which is Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, just close to Toronto there. I went to the John Powell Racing School, which had a 1600cc Formula Ford. And for me, I just wanted to go experience it. I was 19 years of age, which is late in today's world, if you will, to take a school and get into cars. But at that time, Gilles Villeneuve was making his mark in Formula One with a red Ferrari. And I can still remember like yesterday when I slid inside the cockpit for the first time of this red Formula Ford, which maybe went 100 or 105 miles an hour. It was not a Formula One car. And, they put all the gear on you and they strap your belts around you. It's a 6-way harness. And in my mind, I was sliding inside a red Formula One Ferrari. I mean, I was just so into it at that time. And I came home after day 1 of a 3-day course, and I told my mom that that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'm going to become a race car driver.
It just felt right. It just felt right. And obviously the speed factor was not a problem for you. Did you realize that right off the top too?
It's interesting because when you're racing go-karts and you're so close to the ground, the speed is emphasized, if you will. I mean, if you're doing 50, it probably feels like you're doing 80. When you get into a car, it's very different because it's so much more around you. And, the car's weighing 1,600 or 1,700 pounds. A go-kart weighs 300 pounds. So there's all the weight distribution and inertia and all those sorts of things. And that's why you go through a school. So John Powell was so terrific at that point in time, which, I enjoyed the school process. That later in my life, I turned around and actually opened up my own Formula Ford school too.
So you're racing Formula Fords, and you also spent some time in Europe, much to your mother's chagrin, I guess, right? She was a little reluctant to want to let you go.
I had finished high school and enrolled in some courses at Ryerson, and an opportunity came to go to Europe. And I came home one day and sat at the kitchen table over a cup of tea like all us Canadians do. And I said to my mom that I was quitting school. So she tried to talk me out of it. She said, you need school, which is exactly, I made sure all our three kids have gone through university down here in the States. It was a mandate really in our family. And I'm the only one in my family with my brothers and sisters that didn't go through university. But I gave her that news. And I also told her when she settled down a little bit and over the same cup of tea that I was actually now moving to Europe so I could go and try and go Formula 3 racing over there because I want to try and go to Formula 1. So she told me that I was crazy, that it would never work, and I need to go out and get back to school and go so I can go get a real job. So she did tell me later in life that she said, when I reminded her of it, she said, yeah, I remember saying that to you. And she says, but you were lucky. You were lucky. Not everybody gets to do it like that. So I laughed. I said, yeah, it was.
A little bit of luck combined with a lot of skill and the opportunity, and things work out pretty good. So, by the way, your old go-karting partner, teammate John Bassett and Michael and I both wanted to say hello. They both dropped me notes and said, say hello to Scotty. Now, I want to talk about, being back here in North America. In the late 80s, we had a series called the Rothmans Porsche series, the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup, and there's a look at the drivers in that series. You had tremendous rivalries with guys like Richard Spinard in particular. Ron Fellows also raced in that series. Bill Adam, a young Paul Tracy, Rick By, Ludwig Heimrath. There are a lot of really good drivers, guys who've been around the sport a long, long time. And tell us about that experience.
That was the heyday, I think, in North America as far as grassroots racing was concerned, and an opportunity for drivers to get their feet wet in motor racing. And as I love what you're doing here, because I remember this actually, because some of us, I even slept in the back of my car sometimes. Some slept in hotels, some slept in the back of their car like me, and then some slept in a tent like theirs. So quite the diversity in those series. But all those series, the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup series, the Players GM series, the Honda Michelin series, the Canadian Tire Formula 2000 series, everybody came from around the world to come and run in those series because it was such a training ground for up-and-coming drivers. And I think anybody that's made it in Canadian racing, Canadian drivers, were in one of those series, honestly, Joe, because it was such a breeding ground for drivers to be able to race internationally, not only here in North America, but internationally.
Right, yourself, Paul, Ron Fellows, Greg Moore from Note West. I mean, all those guys who went through those, feeder systems, and back then Canada produced a lot of great drivers, and it was a lot of fun for you guys, I'm sure.
It really was, and there was rivalries. I mean, you saw Richard and I trying to, if we were going to shake hands or not. I mean, there was a battle between us, and then. We didn't talk because there's a lot on the line. If you won the championships, you had opportunities to move forward after that. And, later in life, interestingly, Richard and I have become good friends because we're both involved in the Audi driving experience across Canada. And I'm the chief instructor for English-speaking Canada. He's the chief instructor for the French-speaking Canada. And so now we get together at events and have dinner and just enjoy life, and don't really talk too much about that racing stuff in the past. But it's interesting how I think we would have driven each other off the race. Well, we probably did drag each other off the racetrack back then.
Oh yeah,
and now we're enjoying dinner and glass of wine.
But you don't talk about that when you're having dinner. But yeah, I remember doing the commentary in that series for CTV. A lot of fun back then. So we got some some onboard racing viz from Scott Goodyear in the Rothmans Porsche Turbo Cup Series and the Pop 84 FAF 944 Turbo. You won 3 out of 8 races that year, Scotty. In this particular race, you started 21st and you worked your way all the way through the field. Tell us what happened.
Well, and that series was a great series. It was sponsored by Pop 84 and Joseph Manzoli, and driving the FAF car with Chris Pfaff, who's a great friend. And I, went to that track, and what they did in the series was great. They gave a different black box, a computer box, when you went to qualifying to make sure nobody was doing monkey stuff with their cars. And the box that they gave me was not a racing box. It was sort of like a transportation box. So the thing wouldn't go over 2,000 RPM. So we were at the very back, and then, but they wouldn't even give me another lap to go and try and make it right. It wasn't our team's problem or issue. It was them. The series didn't. So we started at the back, and, it was a tough championship to win. And I remember that I was so incensed that day that we started that race. We got, as you said, Jacques Villeneuve, the brother to Gilles, won, and Richard was second, and we were just lucky to get on the podium. But it was a lot of fun.
Well, you could see the work you did here to get through that field, and here you are, all the way up to third. Only those 2 cars in front of you, but it was drive like I could see you pounding the steering wheel because you didn't run out of time. You couldn't catch Bernard and Villeneuve. But
it rained also. I mean, we drove off the track there because you saw the windshield there. It started raining halfway through, and I had moved up, and then I slid off at one point in time. Because of a full-time driver, if you will, at that time, like I was, and a few of the guys at the front, when you're working your way through the pack for guys that are enjoying racing, it's a little easier to get past those guys. Like this car here in front, I think we went down the straight here, and then we moved to the side, and then you outbrake them. And then when you get closer to the front, it becomes more difficult to actually get to those guys and pass them. And I could see Richard in my sight, but I couldn't get there. So, yeah, I remember it distinctly.
Well, that was a lot of fun. When the smoke cleared, as I mentioned, you made up to third, and of course, you ended up winning the series, along with 3 Formula Ford titles, Formula Atlantic Championship, third at Le Mans. Let's talk about that Le Mans race. That was fun for you.
It really was. Had an opportunity to go to Le Mans early in the career, actually with Bill Adam, which was in some of those photos there, and also Richard Spenard. And this is before we started our rivalry, so we actually worked as a team when we were there, and driving the Porsche Canada car, and it was a Brun 962. So I think for both Richard and I mean, we had never driven cars that fast, and you're going to Le Mans at 238, 240, 42 miles an hour in a big, powerful car with a long straightaways and what have you. Bill had been over there at that point in time, so he's really an asset to us. It really was an opportunity to get a taste of what the big cars were like. So for me, I really enjoyed that. I got back to Le Mans in 1996 as part of the Porsche factory team, and Karl Wendlinger and Yannick Damas were my teammates in one car, and then it was Hans Stuck and Terry Bootson and Bob Wallach in the other car. So we finished first and second in class in the GT1 class, and second and third overall. So being able to stand in the podium at Le Mans when everybody rushes the podium like you see in Formula One was a moment I'll never forget. It was really just a thrill, but also getting to drive for the Porsche factory, being invited to do that, and also earlier in my career getting to drive for the Audi factory in Germany too. Probably, things I never thought that I'd get a chance to do. But when the phone rings and you get offered to fly to Germany and go do a test at Hockenheim in Germany, you take it. And at that point in time, you'll take anything because you look at opportunities like that, and you're not understanding how special that is or what an honor that is until later in my life, I guess. And so I was too young and too naive to be nervous about going over there to do the test, I guess, but it all worked out.
Well, a little bit of skill, a little bit of luck helps a lot, but when you're prepared, that's when success comes around. Another sports car victory for you, the 24 Hours of Daytona in 1993, first place finish with Davy Jones and Scott Pruitt, the Jaguar factory team. You guys drove an XJR 12. Tell us about that win and that particular experience.
Really cool. I got an opportunity to do that 24-hour a couple of times with the factory Jaguar team. And that year we won our class, which is GTP, which is generally the highest class in that type of racing. But that year they opened it up to worldwide Le Mans style cars. And so we had a car come over from Japan that had some more horsepower with some excellent talent behind the wheel. So we finished second overall, but first in class. And but just getting the opportunity to drive Daytona, the 24-hour, and it's something you need to do as a driver. And you see a lot of the IndyCar drivers today are doing that. And I'm now working for a series here in North America overseeing F4 and F3 and FR. And I tell our up and coming drivers, if you get an opportunity to go to Daytona, you have to do it because it's 3 drivers per car. And you're generally in there for 6 or 8 hours or maybe a little bit more, but you get almost the equivalent of about 3 or 4 race weekends in one weekend of racing. And I always went to do that because it was a warm up to get ready for the start of the IndyCar series, which is usually about 6 weeks after the Daytona race. So, just it's a great event. Scott Pruitt and I ran go-karts against each other back in our early days, so we got the chance to come back around. And then Davy Jones was running Formula Ford up in Canada during the Formula Ford era. So we had a great time. We just all clicked. We understood it. Our driving styles were the same. We were all the same speed. They were a little taller than me, so I was a short guy. I had to have the pad in the back. But there we go. But no, it worked out really well. Yeah, it worked out really well.
Yeah, you take your little pad with you when you hop into the car. Yeah, that's 6 or 8 hours in a car. I mean, that's like the difference in boxing between a 4-round fight and a 12-round fight, isn't it? Right?
Well, and it really is, and you're conditioning. So, I mean, you're in the car for 2 hours at a time usually, and then you take a break and the other drivers drive, and then you get called, another 4.5, 5 hours later. And it's really important, Joe, because, when you're moving up to the Indy cars, those races are 200 miles, and, the speed that you're going and how hard you have to drive those cars, it's not much off a qualifying pace. And then you get to the Indy 500 and you're in that car sometimes, 3.5, 4 hours throughout the day. There's no resting. There's no stops. I mean, you're mentally and physically on it. And I still remember my first Indy 500 in 1990, driving for Jim O'Donnell in the McKinsey financial car. I was exhausted. I think I was asleep by 8:30 that night. I was mentally and physically exhausted.
Right. Well, let's talk about Indy cars because that was, obviously the next step for you, and that's where you really made your mark. Your first race was at the Toronto Indy. I remember we did some promotional stuff with you way back in the day. There's some of the old teams, some of the old media types doing some stuff. I remember we did a series with on that Toronto Molson Indy way back your first one. I don't know, maybe there's only the second or third Toronto Molson Indy overall, wasn't that? It was one of the first.
Started. Yeah, 1986. I remember that because I was living in the States, so I wasn't there. I saw the first one, and then I started full time at Indy cars in 1990. So when I put up there, with the McKinsey financial car in blue and silver, and with Mr. O'Donnell, the founder and president of McKinsey. As you know, I mean, we saw each other a lot leading up to those races. It's he implemented the fun run that was there, part of the Toronto Molson Indy at that point in time. There's so much festivities going around there. It was really a very activity week that when you got in the car on Sunday to go drive, it was like, okay, it was just sort of quietness now. It was like, because you were busy all week. You were busy. That was for sure.
So, you didn't really break through in the Indy Series until 1992, but what a breakthrough it was. First of all, it was the Indy 500 in 1992. Now, this was where you started 33rd on the grid, and but you weaved your way through traffic, and this was unbelievable. It turned into the greatest finish in the history of Indy cars. 223 miles an hour was, I think, your average speed on that final lap. And look at this, just missed out. Tell us about that experience, you and Al Unser Jr. battling it out.
It was interesting because in 1990, when I went to the IndyCar Series in Indy 500, I was using a year-old car and a Judd engine, which was underpowered. And I left in 1990 thinking, I don't know how these guys do it because, like I said, I got out of the car, I was exhausted. In 91, we went there with a current year car, so it handled better. We still had the older engine, so we weren't that fast. And then in 92, we had the speed, and there's Al giving the thumbs up, obviously, for his first of 2 victories. And then, in 92, I felt like, okay, I might be able to compete. So interesting. That's still the closest finish in the history of the Indianapolis 500. You can see the picture over the top of my head. That's the picture right there. And Al Jr. is part of a team that's actually in the series that I am the race director for now. So we get to see each other a lot. I was just downtown Indianapolis here a few weeks ago at Al's 60th birthday party. And I'm older than Al, but I put on his card. I said, "Hey, thanks for inviting me. I'm a couple of years older than him, but I said, hey, thanks for inviting me to your 60th. And I just wanted to make sure I saw what a guy does when he turns 60, so I know what to do when I turn 60." And he looked at that, and he looked at me, and he's thinking, but he didn't say anything, right? So it was pretty funny. Still not even told him, right? I probably will, sometime in the summer, but. Such the Unser family. I mean, that the family's won 9 Indy 500s, Joe, and Al had been going there since '83, and I started going there in 1990. And I look at that film now. As I got to understand ovals, I did not have the knowledge, the experience, and know really where to place my car perfectly to maybe have a better shot at getting past him. But there again, my third time there, and he'd been there since '83, and it turned out to be a great moment in Indy 500 history, but certainly would have liked to have been on the front side of that. But it's been cool, very cool.
Well, you talk about oval racing, and it didn't take you that long to get the hang of it, because later on in 1992, you found victory lane for the first time. The Michigan 500, you started 9th, once again, back in the pack. You were 3rd on the restart with 20 laps to go, but roared into the lead. And let's pick up the color of the finish now with the legendary Paul Page.
Cars and do it at a 500-mile race. The twin checkered flags lie just ahead, and the McKenzie car with Scott Goodyear at the wheel has taken the win with the first win for Walker Motorsports. In second place, Paul Tracy flashes across the line. Raul Boycel is third. Alan.
So tell us.
Funny you show that. I just had dinner with Paul last night, Paul Page, and Johnny Rutherford, and talking about, Johnny walks into the restaurant, a 3-time winner. So it was, here in the month of May. But Paul still in the radio booth doing some stuff here at the Indianapolis 500. But that was back in those cars, as sleek as they were, with all the horsepower they had, a great battle earlier that day with Mario Andretti. For me, I was still a kid in shock, Joe, even at that time, going into 92, that my first IndyCar big meeting I went to, I can remember looking around the room, and you've got the Unzers, the Andrettis, the Ray Halls, the Fittipaldis, I'm just looking around the room like, what's this kid from Canada doing here? That should be playing hockey. So, it was a lot of fun. And Paul was, Paul was so strong that day too. It was, it was just a lot of fun. Those cars are so fast. They're, 235 miles an hour in morning warm-up sometimes on Saturday mornings when the cool, crisp air was there. It was a thrill to drive those cars, especially at that track.
Well, it was so cool too. And a 1-2 Canadian finish to boot. I mean, that was pretty awesome.
Yes.
So
yes,
we dug up some commercial spot you did. I want to roll that, Vic, if we can roll it.
Trailers for sale or rent, room to let 50 cents. No phone, no pen. I ain't got no cigarette. 2 hours of pushing broom by an 8 by 12 full bedroom. Man of me, man of me, king of the road.
So tell me, what was going on there?
Good thing I stuck to driving.
Huh?
Yeah, good thing I stuck to driving. So when the IndyCar series came to me with this idea and Pennzoil and all that sort of stuff, and I thought I was just going to do the video part. But they said, no, we're going to use your voice. And I go, that ain't going to be good.
Actually, Scotty, I thought your singing was rather good. It was very impressive, and good on you. You're a good sport. Anyway, you did find victory lane again back in 1994, once again in Michigan. Vic, if we can pick up the call of that.
30 seconds away from his second win and a win at the Marlboro 500. His name on the Dana Trophy already won. Will it go again? Boy, it sure looks that way. The man who perseveres wins. A final couple of bottomings. Third turn, fourth turn. Scott Goodyear sees the twin checkered flags from Jim Swintal, and the Budweiser car with Scott Goodyear has taken the win in the Marlboro 500. He'll be followed to the line by Arie Luyendyk and Dominic Dobson.
How does that feel to look back and see Leslie, how excited she was at that victory?
You know, it's always a fun time when you're up the front and stand on the podium, especially if you're going to win. But, you know, just watching those cars go past reminds me of just how quick they were at that racetrack. You could hear the engines and the speeds that those things had. I mean, you used to finish the end of the day and get in your rental car and sort of pinch yourself that you were actually driving home. I mean, they were crazy cars to drive at the horsepower and the speed that they had. So love listening to those Cosworth V8 engines way back then, that's for sure.
Now, it was a beautiful thing watching you and Leslie and, you know, getting the chance to celebrate another victory. And then in 1995, the Indy 500, it looked like you had this race wrapped up. Mm-hmm. Tell us what happened in that race. And tell us what happened.
Oh, I remember that one well. The pace car was having issues all day long. And so he was well out of sight, and you can see how slow he's going there. And in the end result, we're on the gas. And if you had let off the gas, you're going to get passed by people. But in any case, so they had issues all day. In the end result, they're supposed to be doing 100 miles an hour. I heard reports that he was still doing under 80 at that point in time. And regardless of the rules, if you pass the pace car or the safety car, whichever way you want to call it, getting up to the start before the safety car is in, pace car is in, then you can get penalized, which is exactly what they did that day. So it raged on for weeks afterwards. You know, I didn't agree with it then. I don't agree with it now. But in the end result, the next driver in line was another Canadian, Jacques Villeneuve. So he picked up the lead.
Yeah, we had a Canadian victory, but it was so disappointing for you. And I remember watching that race thinking, this is just not fair. I mean, you've got a problem with the pace car, clearly. I know that, now we mentioned Johnny Rutherford earlier in the show, and I'm Johnny Rutherford's driving the pace car now. Like, I mean, you got people that know what they're doing, and it's unfortunate in a race of this magnitude that you'd have that kind of situation where there was maybe a problem with the car as well, but there's certainly a problem with a driver error when it came to the pace car.
Well, and they used to have celebrity drivers back then that used to actually drive the pace car all day long. I keep saying safety car because the series that I operate now is called safety car in the F4 and F3. But the pace car back then. And so now they actually, if you watch Indy this coming Sunday, you'll see that they have a parade car, if you will, a celebrity parade car that the driver drives, and then he comes in, and then the actual pace car driver, which is usually a retired driver like Johnny Rutherford or whoever, it happens to be Sarah Fisher this year, will actually pace the field and come back out on restarts and what have you. So that was the beginning of identifying an issue and a problem. And then shortly thereafter, they changed the rules. So now they, the guy that was there was an employee of a company that was involved in the business. And quite frankly, clearly, he should not be driving the pace car.
No.
Yeah.
No doubt about that. Cost you a chance. Well, in my mind, Scotty, you are the champion of the 1995 Indy 500. In my mind.
Well, I don't have the trophy on the back of the shelf here, Joe. Yeah. I'm not sure.
We're going to get one made up for you. Well, in 1997, you had another shot at the Indy 500. Lap 194 under caution. The on-track lights signaling yellow. Now you're weaving from side to side to keep the tires warm here, and then despite the yellow lights, there were yellow flags, there were green flags. So it was kind of a confusing situation here. Tell us what happened.
It was, and that was probably the last year that USAC, the United States Auto Club, actually sanctioned the event. They went to change it the year after that. But also, as in 1992, Joe, I was learning in 1992, and I didn't have the experience that Al had, and lucky to come from 33rd and dead last to be second, especially on the day that we had. in this particular race here, our car and myself, we were not as fast as Ari, and Ari was my teammate that year. Matter of fact, it's a 25th anniversary of this 1-2 finish, so we got a big thing happening here in town wrapped around that. And, Ari had already won Indy one time and had a wealth of experience on ovals. And, his car setup was just a little quicker than mine. And, even if everything was perfect, I'm not sure I could have drafted him and got past. So we were the second fastest car that day. And that's where we finished off. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was so close. Another so close Indy 500. But nice to finish runner up a couple of times. So we're going to go back to the Indy 500 in 2001 because that was, kind of a career-ending situation for you. You're considered one of the favorites heading into this race, but Sarah Fisher lost it in turn 2, and at the Brickyard she spun. You had nowhere to go here, crashed into the wall. Tell us about this incident.
Yeah, it was disappointing because I really retired at the end of 2000, and we won the last race at Texas Motor Speedway, and that's our car right there. So you can tell all the damage that was done. And I had an offer from the Infinity team, which was Eddie Cheever's team that was doing development of the Infinity engine at that point in time, to do a lot of winter testing to get ready for the Indianapolis 500. So I thought, you know what, I'm not going to go back and do a full season. I'm going to do the testing program throughout the winter, which we did, a lot of miles, and then I'm going to run the Indy 500. So we had a great opportunity, but unfortunately, she had a problem with her car and she spun out and came off the wall, and I ended up collecting her and just ended up breaking my back for the second time. So here's her car there. Her car starts to go around, as you can see, and then you'll see my car come into frame. And, so we impacted it. That was in the Infinity Grill to Go car. So at that point in time, I didn't use the word retirement, but at that speed, I was laying down at Methodist Hospital down here in Indianapolis, which is where Dr. Terry Trammell is a surgeon and I was there once before in 1996 with Terry when we broke our back in Brazil. I was ready to step away from IndyCar racing anyways, and then ended up doing so after that event and continue with sports cars with Daytona prototype stuff for like the Daytona 24-hour. And some various things like that. But I had also entered into television starting in 2002. So I stepped away from sports car racing a couple of years later, actually very close to Canada, Watkins Glen International, and ended up winning with David Donahue and myself, ended up winning the 6 hours at the Glen in a Daytona prototype car. So it was neat because we were on our way to Canada to visit family. Leslie and the kids were with me. We all ended up in Victory Circle and celebrating that. And that was my last major car race victory, I guess, if you will. And, shortly, many years later, I guess 2017, doing the race with my son, Michael, in Canada in the FAF touring car. We won the 3-hour race up there. So, which is probably the highlight of my career, standing on a podium. Joe standing there with your son. After winning a car race, he would do some kart racing, and then winning 6 championships himself, and then getting to some car stuff. So, that was the end of IndyCar racing, if you will, in 2001, which then entered into the television.
Right. So now, every driver knows that the risks involved when you get behind the wheel of a car that's going to be going 200 plus miles an hour. Obviously, the risk is there. What kind of long-term effects? You mentioned you broke your back twice. Like how did that affect your life after racing?
That was certainly just, in those areas, it was T 10, 11, and 12, and then L 1, 2, and 3 the second time. So Dr. Trammell here, the second time, he just said to me at Methodist Hospital, he just goes, you might not be so lucky the third time. You've weakened your back in those areas and the speed that those cars go and the concrete walls. He just said, if you want to go off and do sports car racing, that's fine. But he said, I think you should think about not doing any more IndyCar racing. And at that point in time, I had really basically already retired after 2000. So I was going to step away and do sports car racing anyways. Like I said, I came back for that one and only race at the Indianapolis 500 with Infinity. Now, the race, the tracks today have what they call the safer barrier. Those are those barriers that are in front of the concrete walls. It was devised by the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, funded by them, and devised by them, developed by them. And now they're on all racetracks around the world. They have a patent on it, but they don't charge for it. They're on all the NASCAR tracks. NASCAR uses them also. And so the impact G loads when you hit the wall is reduced by about anywhere 15, 20, 25%, depending on the impact angle and speed, et cetera. And, those things may have helped us, guys like me that had those injuries early in our career. But before I got involved into it, you may recall we had a back issue because the seats were in development at that point in time. The crushable zones were in development. Before I got involved to it, Joe, it was leg and feet injuries. And you might remember Rick Mears almost losing his feet in IndyCar at Saint Air, Quebec. And they flew him in a private jet from Saint Air to Methodist Hospital, and Terry Trammell, just like Humpty Dumpty, put him back together again. And Rick didn't lose his feet and continued on racing, obviously. Still walks with issues today. And we all have issues. I've had other crashes and injuries and plates and screws and what have you. But, so maybe so happy that my son's not sitting in a race car. But racing is so much safer today than our era. And, we'll say that in 10 years on the next generation of drivers that are driving after today, too.
For sure, it does get safer over the years, no question about that. I remember a lot of neck injuries. That's improved as well. So now you're still involved in the sport. Race director for Formula 4 US F3 America's Championship. Tell us about those series and the other series that you're involved with.
It was after driving and then 17 years in the television booth with ABC and ESPN, and NBC came along and bought the rights and the contract to IndyCar racing. At that point in time, a lot of things sort of surfaced, and that piqued my interest in the sense that I had already knew about the F4 cars, because when my son Michael went to go do some car racing, single-seater car racing here, when that series first came out, he participated in a couple of those races. And so I knew a lot about the cars. They were very safe and built like a Formula One car, if you will. Michael, my son, is 6'1", so you wanted something that was very safe for a driver, especially when they're that tall. That gets into feet injuries and ankle injuries and what have you. I looked at that, and the up and coming drivers that are coming up today, just like I was when I was younger and my son Michael was, all come through the karting and then into cars. So they come from go-karts to us. A lot of drivers are 15 years of age to enter into F4. They'll run an F4 and then move into the F3 and FR, which is Formula Regional Americas, that we oversee. So we have the largest F4 series in the world here in North America. And a lot of our drivers continue on out of this series and move into various other series, ladder series, and try to go to Formula One or Indy cars. And two of the drivers that are in this Indianapolis 500 this year, Kyle Kirkwood and David Malukas, came through either F4 or F3 and FR through our series, and moved on to do other things before they finally got to IndyCar. So we're a training ground now, which works out well because I used to own and operate a Formula Ford racing school in Canada, and Paul Tracy was one of my students. So, I think that I've always enjoyed that. And then now to have the opportunity to sort of watch the drivers and teach them and coach them and that sort of thing is something that I'm quite enjoying.
You know what? You did a good job with Paul, I just want to say. And I'm sure you're doing
natural talent. If the drivers that came out of Canada, you'd have to say the top two that had talent, that just walking talent, oozed out of their pores, Paul Tracy, without a doubt, and Greg Muir. And Greg, if life wasn't taken early, I think would have won the championship multiple times and multiple Indy 500s. He was your Senna, Lewis Hamilton special. Most talented driver I think that we've ever had come out of Canada. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was special, no doubt about it. Yeah, and Paul's excellent too. Does a good job with the commentary on NBC too. So now we got the big race. It's we touched on 33 drivers, 200 laps, 500 miles, and hopefully the winner is not lactose intolerant.
Are you saying Capaldi in 1989 was it, or whatever year he won that one? Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah. Well, that's because he owned all the orange groves in Brazil.
Oh,
right?
okay. There you go.
Yeah, he had 50,000 acres of orange juice groves.
But buddy, that's not the tradition. That's not the tradition. You got to drink the milk, man. I know you can get lactose-free milk. Okay, so Scott Dixon has a pole this year, averaged over 234 miles an hour. This is the fastest these cars have been in something like, I don't know, 26 years, I heard. He won the title or won this race in 2008. He's got 6 series titles, 50 career wins. The guy can drive.
He can drive, and he's very tactical in the sense that he sits back almost like a Rick Mears did. He's got an excellent team around him with the Chip Ganassi team, and although it's been a couple of years since I've done the work in the television booth with IndyCar series, and we have another Canadian in there. You guys might know James Hinchcliffe is doing a great job because Paul was there until the end of last year. James is now in the booth, and excellent driver, obviously himself, and now joined Lee Diffie and Townsend Bell in the NBC crew. I look at and we were having this discussion last night when I mentioned we had dinner with Paul Page and Johnny Rutherford and some other colleagues. Hard to pick who's going to win, but Ganassi has all 5 of his cars in the top 12 in that qualifying format they had. You have to bet on guys that are doing such a great job, that have a great team behind them. But, Dixon can sit back and work on his car. And that's what I learned from Ari, who was my teammate one year. Get your car ready for the last fuel stop onwards. And Dixon does such a great job with that. He knows when to be forceful. He knows when to sit back and let the race sort of come back to him. Whether it's going to be a Honda or a Chevy day as far as fuel mileage is concerned, that remains to be seen. Who's going to have the power? That remains to be seen. Track is going to be hot because it's supposed to be in the low 80s, mid 80s here. So track temps will probably be up at the 125 to 145 range, which affects the handling of the car. Drivers are going through a gamut of issues on race day, changing track, wind conditions, and then also trying to make sure you do the proper fuel mileage. But if you have to bet on somebody at the end of the day, it's a discussion about who it should be. And like I said, we talked about it at dinner last night. No clear favorite, and I think that's why this is going to be one of the best Indy 500s we've had in a long time.
Right, and you talk about pole position. We got Dixon, Alex Palos, Rinus VeeKay, Ed Carpenter, Marcus Ericsson, Tony Kanaan, your top 6. Besides Dixon, we touched on anybody else like kind of stick out in your mind.
What's interesting here is that Dixon, 40 now, 41. Like I said, I've been on television now for a couple of years, so almost a little bit of the old guard, if you will. Alex Palou, Rinus VeeKay, those guys in their early 20s, and, they'll drive over their mother if they have to get there. Ed Carpenter, Ed's probably 37, 38. Marcus Ericsson, I think, is probably 24, 25. Tony Kanan's the oldest driver. I think Tony's 45 now, 46. So you got a wealth of experience there. But then when you start to look at the grid and then row 3 with Pato O'Ward and Felix Rosenqvist and then a Formula One veteran with Romain Grosjean, it's going to be very interesting to see who's got the patience, Joe, at the beginning of the race to settle in and be smart about it. Because, like they say, you can't win the race in the first lap, first turn, but you certainly can lose it. And, you can't win the Indianapolis 500 in the first 400 miles, but you certainly can lose it. That's going to be the interesting side of it. The young guys will be able to get to the end and be patient enough and not do moves that are desperate when they don't have to be. That's going to be one thing that I'll watch out for. We talked about Romain Grosjean, who's coming here from F1, very talented driver. Getting the oval experience is going to be very interesting. Jimmy Johnson made the top 12 qualifying for him. A 7-time NASCAR Cup champion, and in his first year of oval racing, in his first Indianapolis 500. It is different, Joe, practicing, qualifying, than it is the racing. And I will tell you from experience that you learn so much in your first race, your second race, your third race. You can't absorb it enough. There's not a big enough sponge. And then the race complexity changes the last 100 miles. And if you're in the top group, we watched some of the video stuff from the Indy stuff here earlier. If you're in the top 3 or 4 or 5, the race changes in the last 10 laps, 5 laps, because no one's polite to you anymore. They'll take the air off your wing and they'll move your car around on you. And you're going to go to school at that point in time if you don't have experience. So it's going to be interesting to see how those guys learn. First off, if they get to that point, and then if they're in contention, what they learned for those last 5 or 10 laps.
Yeah, Johnson in row 4 used to driving NASCARs. This is not NASCARs anymore, Jimmy, but you know, he knows how to, I mean, he hasn't done really well in the road courses from what I understand, but he's he's used to the ovals and NASCARs. It might be, might fit his eye a little bit better, might fit his driving style a little bit better, who knows.
Yeah, and at that speed, you're trusting the car, and the car does. I've always said, and I said this when I was doing television, on an oval, and you could argue the numbers. On an oval, it's 75 or 80%, 80% car, and the rest is driver. And we used to say that on a road course, it becomes 75% of the driver, 25% of the car. Those numbers are obviously changing, and the car has a lot more to do with it today on the road course than it did years gone past. But a driver can make up for a car that's not working so well on a road course. On an oval, if you try to go and give it some body English, if you will, or maneuver it with a steering wheel, whatever you want to call it, on an oval, you generally end up in the wall. And, you can't overdrive the car on an oval. On a short oval, you might be able to have the back end step out a little bit, but you don't get that opportunity at Indianapolis very many times. You just don't catch a car when you're going 230 or 35 miles an hour. And, it's on the razor's edge, as these guys are proving, at 234 miles an hour. And impressive with that, I mean, they changed the qualifying, again this year. When I was around back in the early days, you went out there and there was a lot of pressure on you because you had one qualifying attempt and you better get the car in or you were going home. Now the pressure's on the drivers because you have to qualify to be able to get into the fast 12 the next day. Right. Then you got to go out like Scott Dixon did and set 233, 34 mile an hour laps to get himself into the final top 6. Then you got to go do it again. I mean, I thought there was pressure before from how we did it, but I mean, these guys are up over the edge on the line. Their heart rate's going at 180 beats a minute, and the 4 toughest laps you ever do is qualifying at Indy, and they got to do it multiple times. So if you're in the top 6, you qualified 3 times to be there for this year's Indianapolis 500. That is very special.
Yeah, you've been able to really grind it out, no question about that. So if I was to put you on the spot here, Scotty, and I say, give me a winner for the Indy 500, what would you do? Who would you say?
Let's divide this up into veterans, returnees, if you will, and as far as I want to say returnees, like the young guns, let's go veterans, young guns, and rookies. I'm going to say probably Grosjean from a rookie perspective. Jimmy Johnson obviously falls in that, along with a lot of other rookies that we have, and and including Canadians like Delvin DeFrancesco. I'll put Grosjean as a rookie. Young guns, I'm going to go with Pato O'Ward, with Arrow McLaren. And then for your veterans, I think I'm going to have to put my money on Dixon. So now, I'm not a betting man, but if I did, that's what I would do. So,
well, I think Dixon's got to be. He's got to be there, and but so many things can happen, as you know, right? In a 500-mile race, a lot of things can go wrong. But yeah, you touched on the 2 Canadians. We got Devlin DeFrancesco, 22-year-old from Toronto. He's 24th on the grid. Rookie of the Year in Indy Pro in 2000, Indy Pro 2000 in 2020. He has a little bit of racing pedigree here, and then Dalton Kellett, another Toronto driver, starts 29th. So they're up the pack a little bit. But you started 33rd in '92 and finished second in the closest race in Indy 500 history.
Well, and I think. Honestly, I think for Delvin, he's going to have something he's never experienced before. And I was telling Johnny Rutherford again last night at dinner that he was the senior driver that took me around the racetrack and coached you, if you will, because they have drivers that go ahead and do that. And then, I remember what he said. He goes, the start is nothing like you've ever experienced before. And even though I can explain it to you, you have to experience it to understand it. And you're listening to it, and as a young driver, you want to get up and get going. You're going, yeah. And I said to him last night at dinner, I said, you were so true, because I think I started 21st, if I'm not mistaken, in my first Indy 500. And you go, and it's three abreast, as you know, Joe. So, I mean, only race in the world where you start 3 wide. And, so I guess 21st, I was probably outside on the grid.
7.
you know, what ends up happening is that when you start getting going, the track looks wide, but when you're 3 wide, it's not very wide, number one. Number two is that when you're accelerating, you're going through the gears, and you know, you go to take your foot off the gas because you're not sure what's going to happen in front of you, and you take your foot off the gas, the car's still being sucked along, accelerating because you're in this vortex, if you will. Mm-hmm. And at the very beginning, I'm like, oh my gosh, is the throttle stuck or what's going on? And your car's moving around and all that sort of stuff in the dirty air. I mean, it was all I could do just to get through turns 1 and 2. And I didn't think I was going to make it a lap, let alone get through the whole race itself. So, you know, for rookies that are going there, you know, like Delvin, it's going to be very eye-opening for him, very interesting. And but anytime you get to put a full race underneath you at Indianapolis, you just log all that information and they use that to come back the following year.
Right. Your first race was 1990. You were second in 92. That's a pretty quick learner, I'd say. Okay, Scotty, listen, I want to thank you for being on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's great to catch up with you again, my friend. And let me know next time you're in town because we're going to go golfing. And bring your son along. He can show us how to play this game. Yeah. Thanks for taking the time to join us. And we also have some great Italian clothing for you for the next time you're in town. We'll hook you up with our buddy over at Classica Imports. And thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And I enjoy the shows you do because you send them out and I get a chance to watch them. And I feed them to my sons too because they're big into sports. And we were living the Maple Leaf dream for a little while. And all my kids played hockey. My oldest son, who's 6'3", played some AAA stuff down here for a few years. And they'll go to Chicago, they'll go to Columbus to go watch Maple Leaf games. So, and we do that as a family. So we're transplanted Canadians, but a couple kids are Americans, but we're still Canadians. So 1967, that's a long time ago, last time they won. So we're hoping.
I really thought this was going to be the year. I really did. And they were looking so good. It's just that Tampa's probably going to go on now and win the whole thing. And that's how close the Maple Leafs were when you look at that. But the playoffs are a lot of fun this year. They really are. I mean, watching that Battle of Alberta Connor McDavid has risen to a new level. I mean, what Nazem Kadri did after what he went through, and it's a lot of fun.
And you talk about athletes. And I played a little bit of hockey when I was a kid. I mean, shinny hockey, if you will, or just going in the rink with the boys and what have you. When you sit around a room and you talk about athletes, and we had this even when I was doing television, and I'm always talking about the NHL, the strength, the speed, the hand-eye coordination, and getting leveled against the boards. I mean, it's pretty impressive what those guys are as far as athletes are concerned. So, and just a 30-second quick story on that. I did some coaching here for 7 years with all my kids playing and went and got my level 3 USA coaching certificate because I wanted to be around them in the wintertime.
Awesome.
And it was awesome. I really enjoyed it. So like a goalie coach and a defensive coach. And we had a snowstorm here one December, and the team coming from Chicago, because you play in Chicago, they come and play here. So they were supposed to come the weekend before Christmas, and big snowstorm. They called, they canceled, they couldn't get here. We had 2 pads of ice that we had already paid for, because the home team pays for it, Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning. So we did a practice on Saturday afternoon with our kids. And then on Sunday morning, we were going to do a father-son skate and everything like that. Well, we had some fathers on there that were just yelling at their kids, come on, you can do better than that. Get the puck and all this sort. The whole routine, right? So, and this is probably my 3rd year of coaching. So we did the father-son. Some dads went out and bought all the equipment because they were going to light the world on fire. And some dads just taped some shin pads around their pants and all that sort of stuff. We had the whole gamut of the whole thing. So all the coaches, and ourselves sat on the bench, and some of the other fathers and the other fathers that were eager went out there, and our kids were there, still the refs because we paid for them. I loved it because they didn't even make a shift. After 15 seconds, they were skating to the bench, couldn't get their leg over the bench to get off the bench. 2 of them threw up because I had to jump out of the way. I can't breathe, like this. The best thing about that is that was so quiet for the remainder of the season from the dads not yelling at their kids anymore. So guess what we did from that point onwards? We did a scrimmage at the beginning of every season with the fathers so they could understand what the kids were going through and what athletes they were to be able to skate that hard, to get hit against the boards because of contact, obviously, at that level, And yeah, it was a very interesting exercise, which I didn't mean it to be like that. It just ended up being like that. It was sort of fun. Yeah, it was fun.
That's a great story, Scotty, and it reminds me of another quick story. When I had Mike Tanev on the program, his sons Chris and Brandon both play in the NHL, and he talks about a time when he was, when the kids were kind of young, and he was one of those guys who would yell at the kids and bang in the glass and everything else. And Rick Kornacki, the former Oshawa Generals coach, and he was a longtime OHL GM and coach, and Rick pulled him over and said, "Buddy, here's what you're going to do. You're going to park your butt on the far end of the rink. You're going to watch your kids play. You're going to give nothing but encouragement. At the end of the game, just say good game, nice practice, whatever. That's all you're going to do, and you're going to shut up." And now he's got 2 kids who are playing in the NHL, right? It's like you don't want to be that dad who's like that, because the chances of I mean, it's so hard to make it anyway. But here's a guy with 2 kids in the NHL, and part of the deal was he just shut up and let him play hockey.
Yeah. They'll figure it out. I used to tell the dads that, because I was on the defensive side, you're yelling, the defensive shoots the puck, and he knows before the puck's left the stick, he just made a mistake. You don't have to advertise it to everybody else that's there. And then when he comes and gets on the bench, I'm trying to reprogram the kid and put the confidence back in the boy so he can go back out and do his next shift. And you're not helping me by yelling at your own son. So we actually barred a couple of dads. So, yeah, it's crazy as that is. But,
you got to do that. Well, can you imagine, Scotty, you had a team manager in your ear the whole race go, "Come on, Scott, you got to get around that guy. What are you doing breaking in that, like so early in that corner?" Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. It's Graham Rahal used to have his dad, Bobby Rahal, Indy 500 and multiple-time champion and race winner, in his ear, and it didn't work. And so, Bobby no longer is as the manager in Graham's ear, and you can understand why. Yeah, it's just, you got to have a clear head. Can't take it home with you.
You got to have fun, and you know what? You got to like what you're doing. You got to let the kids have fun, right? Anyway, Scotty, thanks again for being on the show, and looking forward to seeing you in person again real soon. Thanks, buddy.
Okay, looking forward. Thanks, Joe. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, more sports when we come back.
More Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show coming up after the break.
Sports!
Guests on Joe Tilley Sports receive a gift certificate from Classica Imports. Top of the line imported men's clothing. Check out the Classica Essential Collection now. Go to shopclassica.com.
Hey, this is Tommy Graisley, aka Tommy Gunn. I love 2 things, music and sports. And when I want sports, I go to the Joe Tilley Show. He gives me everything I want. It's a great show. Check it out for yourself. Joe Tilley Sports, coming up.
Good night. Addiction Rehab Toronto, Toronto's #1 alcohol and drug treatment center, saving lives, reuniting families. The only treatment center in the province to offer medical detox, treatment, sober living, and lifetime aftercare all in one place. Our unique and specialized programs are designed to equip our clients with the tools to successfully lead a life of dignity, respect, and purpose. Let us help save your life or your loved one's life. Call today for more information or to facilitate an intervention. 1-855-787-2424 or visit addictionrehabtoronto.ca. Joe Tilley Sports is brought to you by COSA, Central Ontario Standardbred Association, providing a united voice for harness horse people racing at Ontario tracks. Check out your benefits today at COSAonline.com and check out COSA TV on Facebook and YouTube for all the latest harness news and live action updates. Live racing year-round. Go to hpibet.com for all your wagering options. Become a member today, and your first bet is free. That's hpibet.com.
Do you know why that happened? You didn't fix your ball mark. The birds around here are very protective of the course, and when people don't take care of it, this is what happens. It's pretty simple. Just find your mark, fix it, and at least one other. Hey, look at the bright side. We're not up on the northern course. They've got bears and moose. Visit moregolf.ca today. You'll find everything a golfer could need, from balls, gloves, and clubs to custom fitting opportunities and training gear. Go to moregolf.ca and get $20 off your first purchase of $100 or more. Just enter the promo code JT Sports.
Turn home, and it's all
time for my Costa Swiss pick of the week. Last week I went to Mohawk for Saturday night's $150,000 SBOA final for 3-year-old filly trotters. I took a long shot, resolving at 15-1. She had the lead at the half, but Adair Castle, the 1-9 favorite, blew past at the 3/4 mark, cruised to an easy victory. James McDonald drove for trainer-owner Mark Etzel. The time was 1:53-2. Resolving faded to 8th. This week, I'm going to Saturday night's SBOA final for 3-year-old pacing colts, and I have to take our old pal Ken Middleton's number 4 horse, Blah, Blah, Blah. Coming off a solid win in the eliminations, Sylvain Filion drives, and I like the 4, 6, 7 exacta and trifecta box. For all the racing updates, visit Costa TV on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Go to hpibet.com for your wagering options. This is the Excellent Sports Adventure. Brought to you by Lycom. Well, Mark Giordano was clearly pleased with his short stint in Toronto. He's obviously happy with the direction that the team is headed. He's decided he's going to be sticking around. The 38-year-old defenseman agreed to a 2-year deal worth $1.6 million, just above the minimum. He's a Toronto native who realizes just how close this team is. Giordano had 8 goals and 27 assists split between the Kraken and the Leafs. He's got 544 points in 1,024 games over 16 seasons. After watching the Bolts steamroll Florida, you get a sense of how close the Leafs actually were. The TV ratings for the playoffs were, wow, just absolutely phenomenal so far. Love watching that Battle of Alberta. Connor McDavid has certainly taken his game to another level, hasn't he? So Nazem Kadri collides with Jordan Binnington, determined to be accidental, but the Blues had some fans go nuts. Kadri receives numerous racial taunts and death threats. The Blues hack him, slash him, cross-check him, but the London, Ontario native shrugs it off and almost single-handedly beats St. Louis 3 goals to give the Avs a chance to wrap it up. Now that's how you handle adversity. Pascal Siakam is being named to the All-NBA team for the second time in his career. The Raptors forward was named to the third-team squad. Spicy P averaged 22.8 points per game with 8.5 rebounds, 5.5 assists, and those are career highs. He is the first player in club history to have a 28-5 season. After a brutally tough couple of weeks, Blue Jays' schedule took a much easier turn, and they've been able to take advantage. Another sensational start by Alek Manoah, who allowed just 1 run on 7 hits over 8 innings and a 3-1 win over the Reds. Bo Bichette provided all of the offense with a pair of home runs. Manoah improves to 5-1 on the season. His 1.62 ERA is the second lowest through 8 starts in club history. Only Dave Stieb had a better one. The kid is looking like a serious threat for the Cy Young Award. But since he's only thrown 83 pitches, shouldn't Manoah have been allowed to pitch that last inning in that game?
Alek Manoah, he's been great the whole time, now 2 years now. We're very confident that we have a chance to be in the game when he pitches, and he did the same thing today. Even when he gets in trouble, he finds a way to get out of trouble, and that's a credit to him.
Obviously, Jordan Romano's a great closer. Did you consider sending Alek back out for the 9th inning?
You just said it. I got the best closer.
An up and down week so far for the Canadians at Roland Garros. 2 Canucks have made it through to the second round. Bianca Andreescu rallied from 2 sets down in the first round, but she lost her match in round 2. Leylah Fernandez has cruised on through to the third round. Felix Auger-Aliassime came from 2 sets down to win his match and swept in round 2, but his Denis Shapovalov was upset in the first round. Well, they missed it by that much. A trip to the NLL Championship was on the line. The Rock rallied against the Buffalo Bandits. Dan Dawson and Challen Rogers with a sweet setup for Dan Craig, who found the back of the net at the buzzer that would tie the game. But wait a minute, the officials reviewed the goal. It was determined the ball crossed the line just a second after time had expired. The Bandits hung on for the win, taking the series 2-0, and they move on to either face San Diego or Colorado in the final. Toronto FC was able to put the brakes on that 5-game losing skid. Jonathan Osorio scored on a rebound in the 89th minute to lift the Reds into a 2-2 draw with DC United. And then FC made a trip to Halifax for the Canadian Championships in the quarterfinals, and they walked away with a 2-1 victory. The Reds are home to Chicago on Saturday. And let's hear it for Toronto's Kadisha Buchanan, who won a Champions League title with Lyon. A gold and a silver for Canada. The World Boxing Championships in Turkey. Tamara Thibault topped the podium in the women's middleweight division with a 4-1 decision over Athena Bilon of Panama in the final, capping an excellent tournament. She won bronze at the Worlds 2 years ago. Thibault earns $100,000 for her efforts. Another Canadian, Charlie Kavanagh, took silver in welterweight. She lost to defending Olympic champ Busanaz Simerleni of the host country. Kavanagh's silver is worth $50,000. Toronto's Jennifer Huggins was named top referee and judge at the tournament. Well, what did I learn this week? Don't hit a driver on 18 if you got a 2-shot lead and there's water in play. There will be at least 5 Canadians in the upcoming U.S. Open. Mackenzie Hughes, Nick Taylor, Ben Silverman, Roger Sloan, all qualified, joining Corey Connors, who was already into the field, and Adam Hadwin is an alternate. He could get in. Now, here's a shot of the week.
God damn it. 4! Look at that swing.
That's pretty scary, isn't it?
Joe the Smooth. This is the 12th hole at Windance, par 3, 145 yards. And he hits a great shot.
It's just a little left. A little bit left.
Just a bit left.
Just a little bit left. How about
God damn it.
4!
Today's environmental tip: keep your drinks in reusable containers. Instead of buying individually packaged drinks, consider buying a bulk container for your favorite beverage. And buy a reusable bottle. Not only will this help the environment, but it will also help you save money. Rycom, passionate people who turn complicated business problems into simplified technology solutions for public and private sector real estate, properties, portfolios, and enterprise customers. Optimize and future-proof smart buildings from the ground up. The latest in fault locating, base building network design, managed services, cybersecurity, data analytics. Our fault detection will support all smart strategies, define projected outcomes for capital planning, and reduce environmental impact. Rycom, smart protection solutions. At Rycom, we're building a path to a smart and environmentally friendly future. And we want to thank all the folks who make this show possible. These are friends, trusted business associates, and all-around great people. A reminder that the show is available on iTunes, Spotify, Breaker, Radio Public, Google Podcasts, Pocket Cast, as well as the Spanglish Network, Zingo TV, and Buzz TV Live. Also, please like and subscribe to the show on YouTube. It's free. All our great past shows and clips are on there. Thanks again to Scott Goodyear for being on the program. That was a great conversation. We had a lot of fun. Thank you for watching, and join us next week when we celebrate Muhammad Ali with Lou Eisen and Mitch Vallo. We'll see you then. Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show is brought to you by Brian Gribben Insurance Planning, helping you solidify your financial future.
At BGIP, what we do that's unique in the marketplace is we show people how to spend and enjoy their money in the early years of retirement without the fear of running out. Also, we're able to do this without you having to change financial advisors. Please look us up at bgip.ca today. Let's book a 30-minute phone call to see how we can bring value to you and your family in your planning.
Call Brian today for all your retirement needs. We did. 905-686-5678.
Do you want to buy or sell a home? Could 31 years of real estate experience help you? Why not speak to an amazing team that loves to overpromise and overdeliver? Aldo has a tremendous team of experts on staff. They are committed to making your next real estate transaction smooth and comfortable. Call 416-GET-ALDO or visit getaldo.com. MNP, a leading Canadian national accounting, tax, and business accounting firm. MNP proudly serves and responds to the need of their clients in the private, public, and nonprofit sectors. Through partner-led engagements, MNP provides a collaborative, cost-effective approach to do business and personal strategies to help people and organizations to succeed across the country and around the world. With local offices in Oshawa, Mississauga, Burlington, and more, their team is here to support you. Visit mnp.ca today to learn more. Hi, I'm Joe Tilley. This November, join me and my wife Penny Claire for a trip of a lifetime. 2 weeks in Egypt and Jordan. Imagine yourself riding a camel beside the Great Pyramids, cruising the Nile River, viewing the temples at Abu Simbel, exploring the desert at Wadi Rum, visiting the ancient city of Petra, and swimming in the world-renowned Dead Sea. Only $41.99 all-inclusive with direct flight from Toronto, free upgrade to 5-star hotels, and the cruise. Visit tripoppo.com and book today to get an extra $100 room bonus credit. Let's travel.